Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I'd like to call the HR committee meeting to order, noting all of the committee members are here and our administrators that we need. I need an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anybody have any public comments to share? Okay. So moving right into dental health insurance premiums for next year.
Kind of start with the easy one. We're still in the midst of our health insurance agreement. Next year, July 1 will be the start of our 4th year or 5-year. As part of that, it's a rate hold and benefits hold. So that's 0% and no change in what we're offering. The topic for discussion really is related to the dental plan. We are, again, self-funded. And so what you're seeing here is just our current dental fund. And as you can see, that amount is very healthy. Right now, I don't have the latest month yet. Our last month on the report is March. Our balance was almost $325,000, which is obviously a really great cushion. Minimally, we certainly would not want to consider any increases to our rates because an increasing balance of that nature is not what we're looking to provide. But what we have, or what we did through discussions kind of come to was that we have some common or somewhat common benefits in our dental plan that we do not offer some parts of the plan that other area districts do. And so how do I
go to agenda, down, right up to your right.
there we go.
Right there.
Sorry. Clearly not used to steering this process. And so the one do is more money towards the things that you might need.
that better, Steve?
Oh, yes, perfect. You just came back.
Hi, Steve.
Hello. Brian looked like he was very serious when he was talking.
He was.
I was just trying to do some,
accidentally
I
muted
was doing some hand movements. We were actually.
Thanks for fixing that.
Okay, well then I make a motion that we accept the discussion for health and dental insurance, the changes there.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Great, thanks, Brian. Moving on.
This next item is, I handed out to you the single sheet. It's got a front and a back to it. What this is a costing document for the compensation, potential compensation packages for this 21-22 school year. First thing I guess we'll point out is that this does look a little bit different than the document that maybe you've seen in past years. The reason for that is actually we're using Skyward to its full benefit now, and it's doing some of the production of this information for us. And I'm taking those reports and folding them into this spreadsheet to give you a chance to kind of view it all in one spot. The second thing I would point out is that this includes the teaching, all 6 employment groups, including the teachers. The reason I included the teaching group is to give us a good full picture of the visual. We're really not at this time talking about the teaching group beyond keeping an eye on what the impact could be based on their compensation increases within the total district picture. There's really 2 parts to the teaching group. There's the CPI negotiations, which, and Steve will probably elaborate a little bit on this, is something that we could engage in as soon as this month, or even, or even sooner, or excuse me, this month or June, because that part is really limited to a max of 1.23%. The supplemental pay aspect of it is points, or the points that we would provide or pay out. And that is something that we won't start paying teachers until September. So we have some time before their first paycheck that we could settle CPI as part of the negotiations, and then as a district, we assign supplemental. We could wait and see what, as the summer goes on, what the state budget picture could be, and then be able to settle supplement or offer a supplemental package at that point. The other employee groups, admin and admin support, and then the 3 hourly employment groups, admin assistants, certified staff, and custodial maintenance. Those are all employee groups that are the majority, many of them are paid through the summer. And so this is kind of the conversation we've been having about setting that wage before they would start to receive their first paychecks. And so that would be starting in July. And so if we take a look at, as we're looking at those 2 packages, I would say let's first start with, there's excuse me, two parts. Okay, I'm sorry. First, I paused because I didn't print my color one. I'm like, oh my goodness, did I give you guys the wrong one? So we have, let's start on the one that says on the top, teachers 1.23 CPI, 600 non-teachers 2% increase, targeted raises, custodians, head custodians, regular paras, special ed paras, health assistants. As you're looking at that, the first number is that 1 point, if we're looking under admin and admin support, it's 3.9 million. That is the ending wage as of this school year. And then if you go all the way to the right, if we provide a 2% package to those employees, we would be spending that number on the far right, an increase of $91,193.53. That's a 2% package to returning employees. And then as you would look at the other employment groups, administrative assistants, classified staff, and custodial maintenance, they are also based off the idea of a 2% base package increase. But because they, as an hourly employees, they also advance due to their amount of time in the district. And so what you'll see then is, so for example, administrative assistants, 1.4 or almost $1.5 million ending wage. That the next, if we offered a 2% package increase to them, straight 2%, no other changes, we'd be looking at $50,000, and it's $50,000, a little over that, in increased wages. The benefits increase is what this will, as we are also having to pay out for their retirement, into the retirement system. That's what that number is. It's $7,600. Means a final salary for that group of $1.5 million. If you factor in those two items of a 2%, so if you think of it as, probably the easiest way to think of it is every person is somewhere in the salary matrix. They've had X number of years, and that wage is this. They get to advance one on their anniversary date, so that there's a change related to advancing. But then you just take that whole matrix and improve it by 2%. That's why overall the administrative assistants would see a 3.41 increase in wage on average. And that what that dollar amount is to the right, 58,000. And then you can see in the classified staff, similar idea. However, if you go down actually two rows, it would say CS info, classified staff info. The next number, in that case, it's $96,443, and then 14,000 and change after that. That is the targeted increases of that group, and the targeted increases are adding 50 cents to the hourly to all employees. So it's 2% and 50 cents to all the special ed paraeducators. $1, 2% and $1 to all of our regular ed paraeducators. 2% and $1 to our health and technology assistants. Two reasons why these are all kind of is that we have within our classified staff salary. We have, again, different classifications, and so certain classifications are paid at a higher rate. The highest would be special ed paraeducators. That's the highest rate. The next highest rate would be health and tech assistants, and then our regular ed paras are the third highest. And so if we want to keep that same structure, we need to advance all of them, and that's why the kind of the numbers are there. We're looking to try to increase that wage to fill more of those positions.
So the 50 cents for special ed is just because they were getting more to begin with.
They are, and so this would, and we have less of a weakness, if you would, a market weakness in special ed compared to our regular paras. We have really a greater need to improve to try to stick with what our comparable districts are doing.
So they won't all be the same by doing this. They'll still have a special ed.
Yes, special ed will still be the highest paid classification, health assistants and tech assistants, which there are relatively few of. I mean, we're talking less than 12 employees in that group across the district. And then your regular paraeducators would see a $1 increase, and they would still be the third highest of that.
Okay.
And then as you look at the last employee classification, which is custodial maintenance. So again, it's a 2% increase across the board. And then targeted increase of $1 per hour for our regular custodians after the 2%. And then as a result of that change, and also a philosophical adjustment to where our previous scale, our regular custodians, as they got to their most senior levels, actually had a higher hourly rate than our head custodians that were at their beginning levels. And so recognizing that supervising needs to be awarded, a higher wage, adjusted that scale to say that now head custodians will start at a rate higher than the most senior regular custodians. And so those two adjustments result in an increase of $123,848 plus $18,500 for benefits. And then as you're looking at the summary, that gives this particular picture gives us the value of these compensation increases is $1,058,843.98. The draft budget that we had originally were working off of had a package increase of $932,131. The difference being $126,000. So, this particular proposal right now would be asking for an additional influx of money to meet the compensation suggestions. Steve, I'm comfortable saying, I'm sure you would have something you'd like to add.
Yeah, if you don't mind, the number that Brian referenced, what was in the first draft of the budget, you have to keep in mind the first draft of the budget is based on the fact that we don't know what the state budget is going to do at this point. The budget committee adopted some planning parameters that was lower than what the governor is requesting for funding for schools. So the governor's proposing $200, our draft budget has $150. Governor's proposing quite a bit of an increase in state special ed categorical aid. We're putting in 35%. So our first draft of the budget is a conservative approach based on what we think might be done in the state budget. So that $932,000 figure is not a figure that you should have to think that you have to stick within, because we don't even have a signed state budget. We probably won't for a couple of months. And since we're not asking for recommendations on the teachers tonight, you can see how the rest of the groups that we are asking to move forward to fit in very nicely with that overall estimated dollar amount that we have in the first draft of the budget. So we feel that the proposal that Brian is presenting to you for the 5 groups, not including the teachers, is a responsible proposal, and it does fit within what we have set aside for salary increases. And it's important to keep in mind that all 5 of these groups are the small groups. And so as Brian references a 3.4% in dollars, it's tiny because of how small the overall group is compared to the total amount of salaries we have in the district. So we feel that moving this forward puts us in a great position to increase our attractiveness for custodial and head custodian jobs, paraeducator jobs, and stays within a conservative budget planning process that we hope will get better, whether it's through the state budget, whether it's through finding out how much funding we're going to receive from the federal government for ESSER 3, whether it's finding out that our student count is much better than what we're estimating. So we're taking a conservative approach, and the proposal that Brian is bringing in front of you tonight fits well within that approach. That gives us more time to work with the teachers, which Brian will show you. I think he's going to show you then another version It's about $115,000 every time we add $300 in points for teachers. And we can certainly continue that discussion on the teacher end as our fiscal situation becomes clear when the state budget is approved. And we do want to bring that back to you as well before the first teacher paycheck of the year, which is certainly feedback that we've heard from the staff over time. But I just wanted to share with you that administratively, we're very comfortable with the proposal on those 5 groups, how it fits into the first draft of the budget. And if this committee felt so inclined, we're comfortable with you bringing that forward as a recommendation to the May board meeting. I did review this with the budget committee at a high level and let them know that this committee was looking at this topic tonight. No concerns were expressed with as long as we're continuing to stay within the planning parameters, which we're doing. So I think it's definitely an affordable plan, and it definitely targets some of our greatest needs. So thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Steve. And if you flip the page over, everything on this second side of the page is exactly the same, except for, as Steve referenced, this one gives a picture of if we were to increase the points payout to teachers to $900, what that additional dollar spend would be is at the top. And then the correspondingly, you'll see an average percent increase higher than the $600 in points. Again, this is certainly to give you the full picture. The recommendation, or what we would ask you to consider, is action on admin support, administrative assistance, classified staff, and custodial maintenance, with an additional maybe sub recommendation that we open CPI negotiations with the teachers on the 1.23%.
So I know I listened to the facility committee this afternoon.
Mhm.
Is $1 enough for custodians to be able to go out and hire?
Well, I will say that is a great question, Joan. It's a question that certainly I wish I could answer. I believe that adjusting that, and I'm going to just reference a specific document here. If we can adjust our starting wage for our custodians by $1, and obviously the whole scale, 2% and $1, so it's 2% and $1. That will continue to make us, more competitive. That would, the challenge we have is that obviously we don't know what the market is going to do at the same time, and right now the median average hourly wage for custodians in our area is $19.03. Our average starting wage is our average wage for our custodians is $17.21. And so this would be, this would make us, it would move us closer to the target of this year with an unknown target for next year. Again, we'd start to look at, what would that net wage be? We're starting to talk then, we're starting folks, over $16 an hour, almost $17 an hour for custodians. Will that make, it will absolutely unequivocally make us more attractive. How much more attractive? I wish I knew, because if I did, I would pick that number.
So we just lost, I think I heard you say we lost 2 custodians, one to another district. Do you know what the pay difference was that they were gonna earn?
I don't know off the top of my head. I did, what I would say is that, actually, if I looked actually at our three nearest geographic school districts, so DeForest, Middleton, and Sun Prairie. Middleton starts, DeForest starts this year at 1643. This, obviously would put us above that wage. Middleton starts at 1850, which is 1847, which is, that's a significant wage and a really large investment. And Sun Prairie has gone to full market, which is even higher than 18. And so, what I would say is that it would, if you're looking at, depending on what your comparable districts are, this does move us into a better position. And if you're also realistically looking at folks that are very likely going to commute, this gives us a chance that they might, again, because you also have to put in benefits packages into consideration. I would say that our benefits package is actually better than all three of those districts. And so I think it makes us competitive.
As long as you feel we're, if we're gonna do it, let's do it so that it makes your job a little easier and you're able to hire some of these positions that we.
What I would say is I don't know, and I know I've said that a couple times. I think this is I think a significant investment into an employee group that we value.
Yeah.
And we know that they do good work. We want to, again, as the facility committee considered, staffing alternatives as a stopgap. That is really, we are looking at it as a stopgap. We want to have our own employees. We believe this will help us get our own employees. I think certainly, I feel very comfortable saying that in the head custodian role, this will make us highly competitive. Not overly competitive, but very much in the market, so that we will be very attractive and hopefully equally so in custodians.
How will the head custodian compare to maintenance?
It'll narrow that. It will narrow that difference. There will still
So we
be.
won't have people, like we had a great head custodian who
Sure.
went to maintenance because that's the only place you could get raised.
The difference will be much less significant. There still is, the maintenance classification is still higher, but much less difference.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'm in favor of it.
Now, this is 1 year raises. This is one, but we're not looking at a 2 year.
This is adjusting the 21-22 wages. Obviously, I think we've talked about that in this group too. We're looking at wages annually every year, looking at improving wages. We've also talked about, there are other avenues. If we get a much more favorable budget, perhaps we have additional money to offer. There are ways that we can, without a back pay process, get that money to employees that are, whether it be a one-time payment, an adjustment moving forward, a mid-year adjustment. Those are other mechanisms that we can use to try to leverage that opportunity if it comes to us.
So are you asking us to look at the $900 points or six? Are you just giving us two choices?
Those, as I mentioned, for those 2 pages for the 5 employee groups that we're really considering, there's 4 groups, but there's 5 admin and admin support are done together, and then classified staff, custodial maintenance, and administrative assistants. Those are the 4 that we would like you to make a recommendation to the full board on. And then, whether it be the same recommendation or same motion or a separate motion, we'd also ask you to consider to recommend that we start our CPI or open our CPI negotiation with our teaching staff.
But we're not doing points for our teaching.
We would
staff.
not, we would be separating that. We would negotiate CPI, and then we would have a matter of months to still find out what could happen for points before we would look to resolve that.
It'll be all the groups except the teachers, and the teachers will bring back later this summer.
You want a motion on that? then?
Please.
All right. Make a motion to be able to move forward with the changes in the support and assistance, certified staff and custodian maintenance proposal as set forth, and then also to move forward with the CPI negotiations with the teachers group.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we have handbooks, and I see we've crunched them down.
Yes.
You must feel good about that.
I do actually, and it, kind of I would say last year kind of led to this year in that we tried to align a lot of that language last year to this year. I guess we'll just kind of take them as they go. And so I handed out to you another item that outlines the changes. And so we'll start with the hourly handbook, which would be custodial maintenance, classified staff, and administrative assistants. Of the three handbooks, that is the one that is very much the most draft form. And so I bring that up because there are some formatting changes that we're going to finalize before it goes to the board packet for Monday night's meeting. And there's also some language, like formatting, language and highlighting that I would still need to adjust. The language itself, what it outlines, that will not substantially change or significantly change in any way, but I will clean that up and make it look better. So if we kind of take a look at that one first, again, the first, as you notice, it's a combination of three handbooks to be gone into one. Some of the immediate formatting changes, as you'll note in the other two handbooks, the pronouns have been changed throughout to make them ambiguous, and so this would occur in that handbook as well. And then we would be, again, to make it a little easier for everyone to identify, I'll be highlighting every change in red. Not all of them are highlighted in red, to make it just a little bit more readily available to everybody. If we look as we work through into section 1.0, that is new to administrative assistants and classified staff. And so in particular, what we're kind of talking about there is the definitions aspect that wasn't clearly delineated in those two handbooks. And so it just makes note of what's full-time, part-time, et cetera. Then if we can keep going, if we go to the timekeeping section. Oh, sure, thank you. Thanks. If we go to section 3.0, which is timekeeping, this section is going to have a major reference to true time and electronic timekeeping. That is the major change for all three employee groups. And so it also makes mention of being responsible for their own timesheets, and it adds an appendix at the end of the handbook which outlines basic directions for logging into and logging out of the system, et cetera. This is, again, reference only. We will be providing training to employees, additional communication. This is just for their reference in that area. The next section we go to is 4.0, which is a comp time. Comp time is something that's going to be new to our administrative assistants and classified staff, but only those employees which work 12 months by year-round employees. By law, we have to pay anyone that works more than 40 hours overtime, or you can offer them the opportunity to select compensatory time or comp time if they would like. We've decided to limit comp time to 12-month employees. That just means that any other employee that worked more than 40 hours would be given overtime. They just would not have they would not have an option to select comp time. And so this, what you'll see is increments of time have become smaller in that regard. Our custodial maintenance group, who had comp time before, it went down to increments of 30 minutes. Because our timekeeping system goes down to increments of 15, that's how they'll be able to accrue comp time as well. Section 5.3, which is paychecks. That the table that's included there just references the different timing of paychecks. So within the system, you work 2 weeks, you submit your time card, you're paid 2 weeks after that. So you work, submit, and you're paid at the next payroll. So that just, the dates are corrected to note that, your first paycheck for the 21-22 school year for a 12-month employee would be on 7/30, which is part of the reason why we have the plan in place for the transition pay if folks need to when we join the system. 5.4, this is an example of one of the things I want to highlight in red. This makes clear to employees if they have overused time off when they leave our employment. We currently have the practice of we take that, the value of that off their last check. So if you were entitled to five vacation days at the point in which you leave our employment, but you use 6 because we grant them to you all up front, we take back 1 day's worth of pay off your last check. This just outlines it for the employees so they see that in practice. The next section, 6.2, is really talks about personal leave. This again makes reference of how personal day is now hours or half an hours, as opposed to days and half days, which it was before, which is much more friendly to an employee. They don't have to use more time than they want to. And certainly they can, in a personal day, they can use it up to their full day, or they use increments down to 30 minutes of that day. And then the next one, which is new to custodial maintenance, is actually it permits them to up to 3 staff per classification. So 3 custodians, 3 regular paras, 3 special ed paras, et cetera, can be on personal leave at a time. Before it was limited in custodial group to just 2, but to make it consistent across, we added, because the language was 3 in the other 2 handbooks, custodians have been raised. Section 6.3, sick leave, now makes reference to both days, number of days in a sick day bank, and hours, because really hours will be how folks will be using their time off at this point. So it just makes that evident to them. Same with vacation, section 6.6. It just, again, makes reference that time off is now in days. And another example of formatting would be on page 9, getting those letters to correct. Section 6.6, again, hours, excuse me, I just said that. 6.7, unpaid leave allowances. The administrative assistants and classified staff both had reference to how an individual, if they wanted or needed to take unpaid time off, could do so. This is going to be now language that we extend to the custodial maintenance group as well. Moving ahead, so the next areas, we're all aligned. We're going all the way up to section 8.1, which is a benefit in the benefits area, other benefits. It relates to flexible spending plans or in daycare, item D, daycare expenses. To make it consistent between medical care FSA and dependent care FSA, we're increasing that number of hours worked to 30. That we're doing that across employment groups. It makes benefits administration more consistent and easier, and it also has the net effect on no employees. Currently, we don't have any employees in the district that work less than 30 hours that use the FSA for dependent care. So it made sense to make that adjustment at this point. Next one is section 9.0. Which is the retirement section, and to correspond with the change in the teaching employment guidelines, which we'll see in a second, of an increase in the value of $5 of sick day. We increased the value of a sick day payout by $5 for our hourly employment groups as well. So it was currently $115, it's going to $120 now. And then section 11.4. It adds layoff language. This kind of explains to the administrative assistant and classified staff who did not have this in there before, how the district would go through a layoff if we were forced to do so. That was language that was already existing in the custodial maintenance handbook. And then we're going to the section 13.3, which is the grievance section. This is very consistent across all employee groups, but adding just a couple important reminders in there of the timeline aspect of it. This is new language to admin assistants and classified staff, talking about if anyone, if we as the employer miss a deadline in the grievance process, it automatically advances it to the next stage. That's just actually legal language. And then finally, section 13.4 is just a reminder to staff that it does not have to be a grievance to address issues if they arise with their employer. And we encourage them to attempt to do so, and we're open to do so if they are. Any questions about those concerns?
No, but I just looked on page 30 of that, they gave the names of administrative assistant job titles.
Oh, sure.
And you have two of them being the administrative assistant to the student services. And you have that listed twice. I thought maybe that was just a typo and one should have been special ed. Page 30. Right there, yeah. Job titles.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I see it. That it sure is. And actually, Judy, kudos to you, because that went through one version of the handbook already without anybody catching it. So
There you go.
we will fix it. We'll have that.
I stayed up for a reason then.
Right, you got it.
Hey,
You found the gold nugget.
Which one do you want me to go to next, Brian?
So next, let's do admin and admin support. Yep. So this one is actually going to be very quick. So this one, there was very few changes, as you'll see here. There's just there was quite a fair amount of alignment. This is two handbooks folding into one. As in the other handbooks, this one has the pronouns that already adjusted. And as we start to look at section 1 to start with, administrative positions, it reflects now that we have a director of special education and a director of student services, as opposed to an assistant director. And then if we go advance to page 6, The part definition of part-time positions and part-time salary computation is new language to the administrator handbook. It was in the admin support. We currently don't have that in our, we don't have part-time positions administratively, but it does make sense to align them, because we do and have in admin support. It did all, and in addition, we also took out reference to job shares, is that we do not start any, we have not started any job shares, or do not plan to start any job shares administratively or admin support. And then finally, the last one, section 5, page 15, is just the same language about dependent care hours per work increasing to be 30 as opposed to 20. All right. And then our last set of guidelines is the teacher employment guidelines. And so there is another separate handout on this. One change still to be made after discussion or presentation to the teacher HR work group. We have an annual conversation where we share this with members of the teaching association for their feedback. They asked for one additional clarification, which follows district practice, so there's no concern about adding that. I'll get to it in a second. And then this will also be a subject of discussion after they had an additional request that I need your feedback on before I look at doing any additions. So as we look at the teaching association one, or excuse me, teaching employment one, again, change the pronouns throughout. And then if our first change, we go to page 26. This is just a processing aspect. Teachers have the opportunity to be paid out for their personal days. We just changed the deadline to make it so that they would submit it before we'd be starting preparation on their last payroll. So it just changes one day. Then if we go to page 35 and 36, many of these changes that we're going to kind of step into next are related to an action that we took last year, where we went through, found all of the financially related items in the teacher handbook. We created a plan of review for them, and spread it out over 4 years. And so this is now the second year of that plan, and we're following through with the items that were carried over or stepped into this year. And so at the end. Then if we look at page 36, actually I kind of skipped it there a little. So let's go. The second part of that financial increase is the contribution to the HRA, increasing that by $20. And so that was part of that continued plan, and how that would be split out over those two parts, vested, non-vested. And then we get to the next one, line, page 36, line 32. This is a more employee-friendly change, but is one that our HRA vendor said that we have to make because of their ability to administer. This just means now that an employee who leaves our district with a vested amount in their HRA can access that immediately, as opposed to having to wait to age 55. And so they can begin using it very different. If you leave your employment, you can use it. If you stay with your employer and you're less than 55, you can't. So, but that's how what the law permits and what the vendor can do. So, 37 and 38 again is now the same corresponding increase in HRA benefits, but for employees that were hired at the later date. It's an increase of $20 to the HRA contribution, and then also $5 to the sick day payout, consistent between the two. And then if we go to page 41, this is now the third time you'll see that. And that's just the increase for a daycare FSA up to 30 hours. All right, next one, slide into page 51.
Can you stop at 49 for a second?
Oh, sure. Did I miss something? Oh, page 49.
Page, that right there, line number 9. Is that supposed to be 2018-19 contract year or 21-22?
Oh, wow. No, sure shouldn't be.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah, that would be,
You weren't sleepy either, were you?
there it is.
We're reading.
Thank you. All right. Joan, I don't need to crank the pressure up on you, but so far, thank you. I wish I was so witty as to test you guys, but I missed it. I appreciate that. So if we go to page 51, we're taking a look at curriculum writing. So this again was part of this year. This is one of the items that came onto the review this year. So we have increased that to $30. That makes us much more in tune with our comparable districts.
Well, Brian, let's go back to page 51. I'll do my catch.
Oh, yeah.
51.
51.
All right.
50, I'm
50,
sorry,
yeah.
50. So that header there should be 21, 22.
Oh, well, and actually what we do on that, Joan, is we adjust that. You're right, it would, but we don't adjust that till we know what the next scale is.
Oh, okay.
And so
So I
you're
won't
absolutely,
catch it.
no, absolutely, that's a
Nice
good,
try.
that is a good catch.
Nice try.
Because we don't drop that in there until we know what we'll be setting it at. So,
Okay.
and at this point, that's yet to be determined. And so, yeah, curriculum writing going up to 30. And so then.
And that will happen this year.
That will be this paid out, because all the curriculum writing is paid out in, after
Correct.
July 1. So that will be under the new contract. And Tim and Amy have been communicating that to the department chairs and coordinators. As they've been meeting with them, and it'll be part of the proposals that folks turn in. The statement that will be added will be on page 51, Article D, line 30. And so this was the committee wanted us just to be explicit in that these positions, so department chairs, coordinators, will be posted annually for review by interested staff. That actually has already occurred. That was a mass communication sent out to all teaching staff earlier. Was it earlier this week or at the end of last week, inviting them to apply and seeing what positions are available. And then we look at, lines 34, 35, 38, 39, increasing in the amount of compensation for department chairs, building coordinators per the plan this year. Then if we go to page 52, Article G, substitute pay for teachers, that increases it by $5 per hour if they are asked to fill in for another staff person during their prep or lunchtime. Page 52, line 36, again, extended supervision, keep those two aligned. The amount of per hour for extended supervision is the same for substitute pay. And then if we go to page 60, we're looking at page 60, lines 35 to 37. This was just an offshoot of our teacher compensation committee work. That didn't actually fit very well in this section. We put it into the other position section where it's a little bit more of a better alignment. So that language will all just move, but just to a different area. And then we're looking at page 69. Yep, you'll see it at the top of that page. And then again, per the financial review plan, adjusting some of the other positions. Again, this lives in the teacher handbook, but it also is the guide for how we would pay hourly staff that take these same types of other positions like chaperoning, ticket sellers, et cetera. This puts it a little bit more in line with, still less than their starting wages, but a little bit closer, so that it becomes a more attractive position for us, because often many of those roles are hourly staff as well.
Brian, when I read this page, I was surprised, and I was part of that conversation. Announcers were kept at 14. Do you know where that might fall, or when that might go up?
Actually, well, it would be schedule-wise, it would kind of be within this.
Yeah, I thought it would have been
Yeah.
here, and it surprised me that stayed like that. When I listened to Jason McConnell and his wonderful voice, I go, well, at least he's making a little bit much up, like 14 an hour.
He also has a separate stipend.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Because he runs that scoreboard and all the things that go along with it. So he's
That's
under a
good.
whole different. So this would be like an announcer at like a softball game.
No.
At
Yeah,
the-
softball. some
And I don't know
basketball.
how hard it is for you to secure these people.
Well, what I would, in part of it actually kind of went into consideration there is just that we typically have not found a challenge with getting people to do the announcing work.
Okay.
So that's why we kind of. put it in.
And some of them go up to 14, so then maybe it will go,
Yeah,
next time it gets reviewed, it might get bumped up. 'Cause
Yeah.
A lot of the 12s go up to 14, I see, so maybe that's why it was left at 14. It just surprised me when
Yeah.
I saw it didn't go up, I thought,
but yeah, so I think it part of it is, you get some sense of how attractive it is to folks by how hard it is to find them, and that's one that we've not had.
yeah.
Do you pay the chain gang out of this?
I thought they
The
were,
what?
Football, that hold the markers, tattoo
Oh,
every.
that's the
first
chain
down.
gang, huh?
I thought that they were volunteer, but again,
Yeah.
Brian, please.
No, I
I
was-
thought they're volunteer. I don't think that they are, but I'm not sure.
Okay. I didn't know that.
I'm
Maybe
only,
they'd come out of Aaron's budget.
yeah, it would, but I'll get that answer, so I'm not just guessing, but
I was just asking. That's-
Yep.
There's announcers into that and they usually fall with some of that.
I will check it out and I'll be able to tell you Monday. And so that was the established changes as part of the handbook. And then that'll kind of fold us into the last item on the agenda. Or actually, did I fold it in there? No, I kept it in there, I think, which was kept it within the same one, which is part of the discussion that came up with the teaching association was there was an interest in paid time off. So right now we have basically, our time is in buckets. You get 10 sick days, 2 personal days. Again, if we're thinking teachers, and then, the sick days can have defined purposes. Personal days can be used for anything. What they were requesting is consideration by the board to offer, instead of defined days, generic paid time off. And so it would, it would be more flexible for them to use. If it could be a sick day, it could be personal, could be personal reasons. And so I pulled, as Joan was listening to part of that, and she had asked me to take a look at some of our usage. And so I'll have to say that part of what we're gonna have to look at is historical. The last 2 years have been obviously very unique. So probably our most reliable data is 20, you know, we're using the years 2016, 17, 18, 19. And so to give you a scope of at least a sense of what we're kind of considering. If we talk about sick days, you know, in 17, 18, that year, excuse me, 16, 17, we we allocated 2,758 sick days to our teaching staff. They used 1,573.
Say that again.
So they were allocated for that year 22,758 sick days. As a group, they used 1,573. So they used up about 57% of the days that they were allotted. If you know, again, if we stick with just the vein of sick days, in 2017, 2018, they were allotted or allocated 3,005 days. They used 2,108 days. It's about 70% of the days were used. And then in 18, 19, they were allocated 3,219 days and used about 2,000 and not about, they used 2,005. So if we're looking at sick day usage, those 3 years average to be about 63% use of sick days. If we look at personal days, same 3 years. In 16, 17, they were allocated 510 personal days. They used as a group 334 and a half, which is just about 66%. In 17, 18, they were allocated 547 personal days. They used 345 and a half, which is about 63% use. And then in 18, 19, they were allocated 583 and a half personal days. They used 434.5, which is about 75% use. And then, if we start to look at 1920 and 1920, there was only about 50% usage. This year, when we pulled the report, there's even less than that. Because essentially folks just, they tip in the usual pattern of personal days is that they tend to be used in the last part of the school year.
Is bereavement days, is that separate?
That's a separate bucket, and actually that doesn't come out of their allotment. All staff, all 6 employee groups are granted 3 bereavement days that don't count from their bank. And then if they want to take additional time, they can use 3 sick days to continue. And then if they need to extend beyond that, they have to request it, and that would also come out of their bank.
Can I so the whole topic of paid time off versus this pot of sick and the pot of personal first came up, well, it's been discussed for years, but it really came up strong in a listening session this spring. And I suggested at that listening session that they take it to this HR handbook committee. And so it was really discussed extensively at that handbook committee. And I so appreciate what you did, Brian, because it tells me that the usage of what we call personal and the usage of what we call sick, there's very little difference. I mean, we're using 60 to 70%.
Yeah, about 68% usage of personal days versus 63 sick, but yeah, very similar.
So the difference is if you don't use a personal day, you're allotted 2 personal days and 10 sick days. If you don't use your 2 personal days, they can roll into sick days and be accumulated the following year. But you can't ever have more than 2 personal days ever, correct?
Yeah.
That seems to be for some individuals to control it. That maybe is harsh language, but that just seems to be, they said, well, could we roll over personal days or could you change the allotment so we had more discretionary time that they could take? Though I don't think that it's going to hugely impact operation.
Yeah, and as I would say, what we tend to see, I'd say the operational feel would be, if there would be one, would be experienced, this time of the year. Because this, what kind of gives you a sense of how staff use personal days is, we have limits. We have limits within a building, only certain amount of staff can get a personal day at any given day. And we also have a limit, we have a building limit, and then we have a district limit. And so, like, for example, this year, May 6th and May 7th, tomorrow and Friday, tomorrow is closed for one building. On Friday, it's closed for teachers in Paris. So we've hit the limit for both employment groups. Those are 2 separate pools, by the way. Paras are different. They have their own limit. Teachers have their own limit. Next week, there's another building that's going to hit there on Tuesday that there are no more personal days available to their building. Friday, the 14th, that's a day that's closed in the district for any personal days, and as is May 21st. And so we do have, and that was, I think, one of the other topics that they brought up, is that we have limits. And we do, we absolutely do have limits.
And wouldn't we still have limits even if we called it all paid time off?
Yeah,
We would still
well,
have limits for advanced days off.
well, and what
You
I,
have to notify for personal, you don't notify for sick, obviously you just are sick.
it depends.
Right.
One of the reasons for personal, for a sick day can also be medical appointments for you or for family, as defined kind of by that. And so, some sick days are scheduled in advance. And personal days, are scheduled in advance. What I don't have a good picture of for the committee is how have other school districts experienced this change? Not coincidentally, Janesville School District actually is in the midst of gathering that information. They sent I don't know how far they extended it, but I think they used basically southern Wisconsin to try to gather information about this. Unfortunately, they didn't start doing that until Thursday of last week. So they haven't gotten the information gathered yet.
I think what we need to get from this group is, is there interest in changing these categories or the title of time? Because it kind of has to start here.
Yeah,
And, I don't know if we even want to define it, because defining it all as one type might really restrict the usage for appointments that could be deemed medical.
right.
There has to be some way to control the number of subs
There might.
and the number of staff members who are off when they are classroom teachers.
Yeah, I think the unique challenge in a school versus maybe, well, even if it was public institute like state government or
Right.
private industry, is that you can have operations can continue
Right.
if a department or part of a big chunk of department isn't there, right? You make plant But for us, if we don't have adults to supervise and manage students, our operations are, and put people at risk. And so I don't know that we could ever, I don't know, I can't in my mind envision how would we have any kind of limits if we had all generic paid time off.
Right.
I think, to me, it becomes an operational question of, is it better to offer more generic time off, but still have some that are strictly sick? Or is it,
Yeah.
or would it be, is it better operationally to allow people to carry days over as personal?
And I think those are two really, those are what I would jump to. Should we have 3 or 5, what we call personal, and limit it to that, and then the rest sick? Or if they don't use it 1 year, can they carry 2 or 3 so that they have, and I'm not even sure, what would come up in a personal's life where they need that much personal time off, but it just seemed like a really passionate topic, and one I felt that we should at least consider because of the degree of passion that they showed for it. I mean, they really want it to be less restrictive in use of their time.
Yeah, I guess I want to know more what other people are doing. And I want to talk to some people outside as well that I know that work in this consulting field and find out what everybody else is doing around the country too, and some of the benefits and some of the things.
So if a teacher is out sick and we're short on subs, are we asking other teachers to fill in?
Yeah, that would be.
And is that asking or saying you got to? Is there a pressure to do it?
Well, I would say the first level is always requests. In trying to see if we can get, paid volunteers.
Yeah.
I would say then the next step is typically going to be a combination of either staff that can be get reassigned. And almost always it also means that building administrators leave their administrative role and become classroom folks. I mean, it's probably a combination of, it absolutely is a combination of A, B, and C.
So I just wonder about the amount of stress that are on classroom teachers and administrators when we don't have enough subs to cover. And will increasing this require more subs then? That's kind of a balancing act.
To me, that's absolutely quite a question that I would ask schools that have done something like this. I would ask them what have they experienced in those areas. And I think to both what Brian, you had said, and Joan, what you had said, I kind of see really 2 paths at this point. One would be, 3 paths really. One would be, no, we're not interested at all, and this is a subject that we're not willing to investigate. 2 would be, we're open to the idea and we're gonna gather some information, and this could be something that comes back at a future version.
Yep.
Or the third option being, we take a measured, if you would, put a toe in the water, and we make a minor change and see how it goes, right? I mean, so, 1 is, no, we're not gonna do it. 2 is we'll study it, figure out, or 3, we'll kind of make a limited blind test and see what happens.
Yeah, no, I'm good for 2. I think we need to do more research into it, talk to and think about it more than 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, I would
talk
like,
about it. Because
Yeah.
I mean, it's right. It's a concern, and we need to listen to that. But I want to make sure that we're not thinking about backtracking in a year or 2 too, as well.
the other group that I think I would like to have some type of weigh in are building principals.
Okay.
They see this.
Yeah.
Sure.
You know, what is the effect that they feel will trickle down?
Right.
But yeah, it'd be great to go out to other schools if you can gather, and I know
Well, I mean, my
you're
first,
deep in.
well, my first
everything.
thought is what a great opportunity to piggyback on Janesville already.
Yeah.
Janesville
Perfect.
already gathered from an unknown audit sample, hey, who's doing this? And so once
See what they
once you
find out.
find out who's doing it or considering it, you know, the synergy of you learn from other
Right.
people. I mean, that's,
Right. Well, I know that the teacher work group wanted to at least run it past this committee, and we took it here. And you said you'll reach out to them and at least say, we're open to it. You know, and it may not happen for next year, but I still think we have a couple months.
yeah, I mean, there, I would say, and we have done that. We have made
Right.
handbook adjustments. And again, and this is no different than I mean, this isn't really taking effect until September.
Correct.
And so there's time.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, great. Thank you, Brian.
Did you need a motion to move the handbook to the full board?
Well,
Yeah.
well, it's first reading only.
Oh,
And so I don't believe we made a motion last year. I think they're presented for first reading.
And
And
yeah, I
then
think
they're
you're
actually
right.
formally, a formal motion occurs on the second,
Yeah, I think
the
you're
June
right.
meeting.
Okay, so that's all you have, Brian?
That-
So
that's
I
all.
would take motion to adjourn. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca.
Night, everybody.
Nice.
Hey,
Thank you,
Steve, have a good
Steve.
night.
Steve.
Yep, later.